Sometimes you don't have control, right? Children's Services has all the say. We just need to support the kids going through this. We were lucky. Our caseworker stayed the same the whole time. It was our support worker that would change. That connection between the kid and our support worker it's just like having another friend that, has been a part of your family.
When you have a revolving door of social workers rolling through the door with absolutely no relationship with you, your house, or the kids, it's extremely challenging to feel validated or part of the team. You're constantly rehearsing the same story, and for the kids, it's just as frustrating. I've got one kid, he's got a collection of business cards upstairs in his drawer, and it's 1/4 inch thick of business cards. It's a hard job. It's a really, really, really hard job, and the burnout rate, I think, on the staff is under-recognized.
You have to be enough of a realist to understand that the department is doing what they can with what's available to them. And foster parents have to recognize that you can only work with what's available. And if you think that something should be available and it's just not there, don't get frustrated, don't get upset. Just do your best to advocate for the children that you have, to give them as much as you can give them.
I'm Jessica, and I've been a kinship caregiver for 4.5 years now. Since being a kinship caregiver, I've actually hosted 4 foster children in my home. When attempting to navigate this system that has been put in place, I really had to rely on my personal strengths, my skill sets. One of the challenges that nobody really has a lot of control over is how quickly our support team can change. I had a beautiful relationship with my first caseworker. My kinship caseworker was amazing, but they don't always stick around. Sometimes the fit is not always there. Inside mentorship and caregivers, the fit is kind of predetermined by the screening processes. But when it comes to our system, one of those out of control pieces is whoever has an open caseload will end up with whichever file. Even having access to try and have support team meetings does not always work well.
There's so many problems with communication because you've got so many people at different levels interpreting things differently. There's a lot of confidentiality, so not everybody is speaking plainly or transparently about what's going on. And when you do get information, sometimes it's hard to understand the context. And a lot of the time too, there's a lack of communication. There's ghosting, the people are busy and they don't always get back, or the different ways of documenting. It's a lot. It's a lot for anybody.
It was very difficult in those first few months just to try and see who are the people I'm supposed to talk to. Nobody gives you the manual up front that says, here's your hierarchy to get through to find the things that you need to support your youth or even your natural home inside this new process.
My name is Melissa, and I've been with the Alberta Foster and Kinship Association for the last 12 years. In my current role as the Chief Executive Officer for the last 3 years. And throughout that time, I've been working hard to support caregivers in the best way that we can and to advocate on behalf of their needs so that they can do the best that they can for the children in their care. In the foster and kinship system through Alberta, there are many stakeholders involved. The top one that you need to be most aware of is the Ministry of Children and Family Services. Their main role is to develop policy and practice guidelines to implement across the province to ensure the safety of children in foster and kinship homes. As a foster or kinship caregiver in Alberta, you may be providing those services for the children in your home through either the department, through an agency, or through a delegated First Nations agency. These are all providing the service for the Ministry of Children and Family Services. The next stakeholder is you, the most important one in my eyes, the foster and kinship caregiver, who's providing support for the children that are placed in your home. Another stakeholder is the Alberta Foster and Kinship Association, the association that's there for you, trying to provide support and services, advocacy to the ministry, so that you, the caregiver, can provide the best support to the child that's in your care. Because the majority of children and youth in care are Indigenous, it makes sense that another stakeholder in their lives is the Indigenous band or Indigenous nation in which they're from. And finally, another stakeholder would be the cultural communities that are out there across the province. Not all children in care are Indigenous. They may come from another culture, and so it's important to remember that there are those other cultural communities that could have a positive impact in the life of the child. The very common challenge across the province is the policy and practice guidelines that the ministry puts in place for department homes, agency homes, and DFNA homes. All three are to follow the policies that are in place across the province. The practice guidelines help support the work that's done to implement those policies. Sometimes they may look different across the province depending on the situation and what's in the best needs of the child that's in the care or for the family that's involved.
One of the first things I did for myself, trying to get through the first 3 months of being a kinship caregiver and officially within the Children's Service envelope, was I read the Child and Family Enhancement Act. It actually really opened my eyes, and it helped me when engaging with any part of the team, any part of my peer groups, to really give them a factual place to look for the information they need.
It is really important to be familiar with the Enhancement Policy Manual, not necessarily to read through the whole thing because it's a very long document, but to know where to find it and to know how to search it and how it's formatted. So there's the policy and then there's the best practices. There's 2 sections. You can do a search for the thing that you might be interested in, such as assessment of care concerns. You can look that up and then it will bring you to the different areas so you can find information about what you're facing. I would also recommend that you look at it before you have any issues or before you start feeling any stress or any burnout or anything, because it's hard to read it when you're under pressure. So it's better to have an idea first, how it's laid out, and then when you need to go find something, it's easy to find it. Documentation is important on every level. Knowing what documents that you're supposed to be following, like the enhancement policy, like your delegation, like your agreement to foster or kinship agreement, all those documents are very important for you to review and understand. More than that, the daily behaviors, if you're noticing them, if you're not documenting them and you get to the doctor, they're going to ask you how frequently. And you can't just go off your memory. You have to have some sort of documentation so that you can explain what's really happening. They can see a pattern and they can back you up. The same with Children and Family Services. They're more likely to be convinced by your advocating for the child or youth when they can see what you've been saying and they have documentation that this has been a problem because you've been communicating it.
Documentation can have a lot of advantages. It can help provide clarity for everybody involved in the discussions related to those challenges for the child. Having that regular documentation alleviates the stress behind trying to remember what happened and when, if ever asked.
No matter what life throws at you, there is a system in place in the system already to support you and point you in the right direction. I never would have had the beautiful network of AFCA if it had not been for my system worker. It really brought me to a place where I finally realized who I am and what I have to offer, the skills that I had pre-built inside me and supportively built through the caregiver service team. I feel like what I can give a child, no matter what level or involvement or engagement, I can find something. If I don't have it this minute, it's made me into an even more curious caregiver to learn.
Find your community of other foster parents, other kinship caregivers, and network with them. Get to know them, build relationships. That's where you're going to find some solid support. You can also reach out to the Alberta Foster and Kinship Association to share your positive stories, share things that are going well, but also to connect with us for some of those other challenges that you might be facing and to get the support that you might need. One of the important things to remember about being a caregiver is your responsibility to make sure that the needs of the child or youth in your care are being heard and met. You have that child or youth for 24/7. The practitioners that are managing those files don't know the day in and day out of that child's life. And so it's important for you to let them know about what is happening and what is needed in order for that child or youth to be successful.